Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Well, we are thrilled tonight to have a special guest to sing our national anthem. Tonight we have Addie Marseglia. Addie is 11 years old and she attends Carl Sandburg Middle School. She loves reading, singing, and theater, and she will also be singing at our township's holiday open house, which is December 12th. Addie, take it away.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, who's got stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight? All the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Addie. You're welcome back anytime. Okay, I will call roll. Ms. Hannah. Gotcha. Ms. Kane.
Here.
Ms. Payne.
Here.
And also in attendance, we have our Township Manager, Ms. Tioli Cools, our Assistant Manager, Mr. Valla, Township Solicitor, Mr. Esposito, Township Engineer, Mr. Kessler, Chief of Police, Joe Barbarilla, Director of Building and Zoning, Jim Ennis, Director of Park and Recreation, Paul Capera, Director of Finance, Mega Bandari, and Director of Public Works, Eric Gartenmeyer. In terms of upcoming meetings, our next Board of Supervisors meeting will be Monday, December 16th, 2024, and that will be 7 p.m. here in the Public Hall. We have a couple of upcoming events. First, Shop with a Cop. That will be this year, Saturday, December 7th, 2024. That takes place at the Target located in Oxford Valley. Again, December 7th, 2024. And we also have our holiday open house, which we know Addie Marseglia will now be singing at. That's going to be Thursday, December 12th, 2024. That's from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., and that is here at the Middletown Municipal Center. Next, we have a couple of proclamations. The first is a proclamation recognizing Native American Heritage Month in Middletown Township. And that reads as follows. Whereas every November, National Native American Heritage Month is celebrated to honor the remarkable Native Americans who have contributed to the character, culture, and history of this nation. This month is also referred to as the American Indian and Alaskan Native Heritage Month. Native American Heritage Month honors and celebrates the perseverance, rich diversity, and excellence of all Native Americans. And whereas National Native American Heritage Month is a time to rejoice in diverse and rich cultures, histories, and traditions, and to appreciate the great contributions of the Native Americans, this month allows us to spread awareness about tribes and educate people about the various challenges faced by the Native Americans in the past and today. And whereas National Native American Heritage Month began as an effort to have a day of appreciation and acknowledgement for the unique contributions made by the first Americans for the growth and establishment of the United States and the effort has now resulted in a whole month being celebrated for that purpose. And whereas in 1915, a plan concerning American Indian Day was formally approved in the annual Congress of the American Indian Association meeting and was declared in May 1916, in 1990, a joint resolution was approved by George H.W. Bush, which called for November to be named National American Heritage Month. Declarations like these have been issued since 1994, such as Native American Heritage Month and National American Indian and Alaskan Native Heritage Month. And whereas Middletown Township encourages everyone to learn more about the people who first called this nation home in the spirit of growth, healing, and hope for a better future, now therefore be it resolved by the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors that November be proclaimed as National Native American Heritage Month. Next, we have a proclamation recognizing Small Business Saturday in Middletown Township, and that reads, whereas the Township of Middletown celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community, and whereas according to the U.S. Small Business Administration, there are 33 million small businesses in the United States. Small businesses represent 99.7% of firms with paid employees. Small businesses are responsible for 62.7% of net new jobs created since 1995, and small businesses employ 46.4% of the employees in the private sector in the United States. And whereas 68 cents of every dollar spent at a small business in the United States stays in the local community, and every dollar spent at a small business creates an additional 48 cents in local business activity as a result of employees and local businesses purchasing local goods and services. And whereas 72% of consumers reported that Small Business Saturday 2023 made them want to shop and dine at small, independently owned retailers and restaurants all year long. And whereas Middletown Township supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities. And whereas advocacy groups, as well as public and private organizations across the country, have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday, now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of Supervisors of Middletown Township, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, that November 30th, 2024 be designated as Small Business Saturday. The board urges the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. And next, and this is a big one, we are proud to once again recognize our local student athlete, Kennedy Dobson. And we have a proclamation, which I will read. Whereas Kennedy Dobson has shown extraordinary talent, dedication, and perseverance as an athlete and scholar representing Middletown Township in the United States on the world stage, and whereas Kennedy was selected to compete for Team USA at the Junior Pan-Pacific Championships in Canberra, Australia, joining 39 of the nation's top 18 and under athletes based on her outstanding performance at the Olympic trials. And whereas while in Australia, Kennedy displayed unparalleled commitment, swimming the most of any American female swimmer, competing in 8 races over 4 days, covering a total of 3,300 meters, and making finals in multiple events. And whereas Kennedy led off for the American 4x200 meter freestyle relay, racing her segment in 1 minute and 57 seconds, providing a decisive lead that propelled the team to victory and a record-breaking finish. She captured her first individual gold medal in the 400 meter freestyle, contributing to a historic event in which the United States team claimed every gold medal in the individual events. And whereas Kennedy finished strong on the final day by placing second in the 800 meter freestyle, securing silver and demonstrating exceptional teamwork alongside her American teammates. And whereas in September, Kennedy was honored with selection to the United States national junior team, acknowledging her elite status among America's young swimmers. And whereas in October, Kennedy continued to break records, setting a new pool record in the 500-yard freestyle at Princeton University with a time of 4 minutes and 37 seconds, which now stands as the fastest time for 18 and under swimmers in the nation and the second fastest among all U.S. swimmers. And whereas Kennedy has been awarded a prestigious 4-year full scholarship to the University of Georgia in Athens, Georgia, where she will continue her education and swimming career, furthering her role as a leader and inspiration for her peers. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors in Middletown Township extends our heartfelt congratulations to Kennedy for her remarkable achievements and conveys our pride in her contributions to both her community and to her country. And I don't know if you see, but we all have University of Georgia hats here. So, congratulations, Kennedy. We are incredibly proud of you. I know we had Kennedy here before, but we just thought we really can't acknowledge enough how unbelievable these accomplishments are and how proud we are of you. And we really do wish you the best at the University of Georgia. We hope you have a great college career. So congratulations and thank you for coming back. All right, so that takes us to public comment. This is public comment on non-agenda items only. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
Dave Cahill, 462 Cynthia Ave, Pendle, former member of the Pendle Fire Company. So last month I was here at the microphone and I made the fire company an offer they couldn't refuse. $500 donation for a copy of the loan documents for Tower 8. I didn't hear nothing. Not a word, not a peep. Everything's very quiet. So I asked the supervisors here, what are they hiding? All I'm asking for is a piece of paper with information on it on what they showed for income for that loan from the bank for the tower. Why can't I have it? Well, you usually answer all the questions, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, my answer is going to be the same, which is you have to ask the fire company. We
Yeah.
are not the fire company. They're separate from the township. I don't have the authority or the ability to give you access to those documents.
So I'm going to go back to the same thing I said last month. They have to report everything to you every year for their budget the following year. So they should be reporting all the things they're supposed to report to get their budget for at the end of the year this year before the 31st of December for their 2025 budget. Am I correct?
What do they have to report to us?
We asked to see their budget. We get copies of their budget.
So that's interesting because the first meeting that I came to in August, your township manager didn't know nothing about nothing when it came to the Pendle Fire Company. But now all of a sudden tonight she says there's a budget that's submitted. You didn't mention that.
Our agreements allow us to request the budget. I know Nick has received copies of all their financial information. What I have told you is I have nothing to do with anything related to their borrowing for apparatus.
Okay.
And I don't have the authority to ask them to provide me those
So when
documents.
they
That is a piece of apparatus owned by the fire company, not Middletown Township.
So in 2021, when they bought the tower, when they were getting ready to purchase the tower, were they in communications with the township about needing to take a loan to buy the tower, since they didn't have enough money that was supplied by the township?
We have long-standing relationships with them, and we talk about a lot of things. We do not approve their loans. We have nothing to do with them borrowing money.
I understand that, but they still have to report everything to you. So they fell short of the money that they had to buy the tower, and there's a video of their chief, Gary Laird, on YouTube showing off the tower and talking about all the extras they put into it. Why would you put all these extras into a truck that you didn't have enough money for, that you had to take a loan for?
Again, I would
It
follow
just doesn't make any sense.
Chairman
right, Mike?
Kizak in that you should
I'm
take
not,
this
I'm
up
not
with
commenting
them.
on what they did or did not do. It's got nothing to do with us.
But the
sir.
township knew everything. The township knew everything that was going on, right?
No.
No, the answer should be yes, Mike.
The answer should not be yes.
Sure.
As the township manager has indicated, we have nothing to do with loans they take out. We were not involved in the loans. We didn't borrow the money. They borrowed the money. So I don't know why you're asking us to provide loan documents that are not
because
our loan
I'm
documents.
getting from a very credible source that they were supposed to buy a stick, which is a straight ladder, not a tower, because Langhorne Middletown already had a tower. So why would they spend all that money on
You
a
have to ask
tower
them. You
that
have
they
to
didn't
ask
have enough money for to begin with?
You have to ask the fire
No,
company.
you have to ask the fire company. They bought it for you according to the contract.
They didn't buy it for Middletown.
They bought, in the contract, they have to supply, they got to supply the ladder. They have to supply the ladder, according to the contract. Did you
I'm
read
just-
the contract, Mike?
I'm not following your reasoning.
So you're telling me that you're meeting with all the fire guys, that you're meeting monthly, and there's no meetings going on. There hasn't been any meetings. There's been zero.
I'm not sure what that has to do with
So you're telling me that you're meeting your contract negotiations, you're working up this contract with the 4 fire companies for the apparatus plant. There's been no meetings.
What does that have to do with their loan documents for the tower that they took out years ago? I'm just not following.
You're not following.
I'm not following.
Okay. So where are we at?
With
Where
what?
are we at with the investigation into this manager thinks it's funny?
Investigation into what? I'm not following you. I apologize.
Into the loan documents.
We're not investigating the loan documents.
So you're not, I've been coming to the microphone for 4 months now. This is the 4th time I've been to the microphone.
Sir, I've told you the
And
same
you
thing
guys
every
aren't
time
worried
you've been here, which is you have to ask the fire company, not the township.
Okay. So who sent the goon after me after last month's meeting, Eric Bruno?
I did that myself.
Huh?
I did that myself.
Is there a reason why the goon, Mr. Bruno, came after me when I was leaving the meeting last month?
I have
in
no
October?
idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I had to go to the chief and make a police report on it. Okay?
I don't know what you're talking about, sir.
So maybe I'm hitting the right points? Huh?
I don't know. Respectfully, sir, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you mean when you're talking about Mr. Bruno. I knew nothing about that. I mean this respectfully. I understand you have concerns about the Pendle Fire Company. You have to take those concerns to the Pendle Fire Company.
So why wouldn't they take me up on a $500 donation?
Why are you asking Middletown Township that question?
Because they're hurting, and everybody here knows they're hurting. Why wouldn't they take a donation
Ask
like
them.
that? Huh?
Ask them. Ask them that question.
So they know I'm here. Why aren't they coming to these meetings and defending themselves? I can't go to their meetings. They're a private nonprofit,
Correct.
right? So that's funny because I asked the Pendle Borough Council last month if the taxpayers were footing the bill for their workman's comp. And I couldn't get a straight answer. So why am I, as a Pendle Borough taxpayer, why am I footing the bill for their workman's comp when they're a private nonprofit? Huh? So there's a good chance that they might owe a little bit of money. But more importantly than that, there's a good chance that they might have been using the truck fund money to make their payments for the tower in 2022 and 2023. But there was no approval by this board for them to use that money to make their payments for the tower. According to the contract, there has to be a deal. There's got to be an agreement worked out. And there was no agreement worked out. So do they owe the Middletown Township taxpayers some money? Listen, Mike, I could go on for days.
I believe you. And
Could go
I'm not
on for
saying.
days. I have more. How about a hypothetical question for you?
Can I just listen? I'm not trying to take the floor away from you.
I'm not going to stop coming, Mike. I'm going to keep coming
you're
to
what?
this
Listen,
microphone
you can
until I
come
get my answer.
This is public comment. You can come to every single meeting and you can give this same lecture every single time. I don't have the answers you're looking for. You've got to ask Pendle Fire Company.
So let me ask a hypothetical. If a Skyline fire chief was stealing fuel from the township, would they investigate that?
If they were stealing fuel from the
From the township, would the township investigate that?
The
honestly,
Skyline Fire District hasn't been
Doesn't exist.
in place for more than 15
I'm
years.
asking a hypothetical
I'm not answering a
question.
hypothetical question. I'm just not. I'm sorry.
I'm not getting any answers, Mike.
I'm not going to answer a hypothetical question.
And the
I'm sorry.
questions, when I come here, the questions are just going to keep getting tougher.
They don't get tougher to me. You can come here
Yeah,
every day
yeah.
for the year if you want to come here.
You keep washing your hands
not
of it,
washing my
saying that
hands.
you guys don't have anything to do with the Pendle Fire Company when you do.
I've never said that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other public comment on non-agenda items? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
Good evening. Sheldon Post, Red Rose Gate. I have 3 totally unrelated topics I wanted to hit tonight. And the first one, if we can stand it, a little more trash talk. I had a couple questions about that, but Mr. Valla actually straightened one of them up in my mind at the last meeting, the whole bulk pickup discussion. The other thing I wanted to mention or ask about also, am I correct in saying that once the new contract begins, that quite simply, if it doesn't go in the can, it doesn't get picked up? And I'm talking kind of specifically about the broken dining room chair that for 30, 40 years people would put down at the curb next to their trash can and away it would go. But now, I'm assuming if that doesn't go in the can, is it left at the curb? And do we have to break them up
It
more?
has to
or-
go in the can. You have to break it up and put it at the can or save it and make it a bulk item.
All right, same thing with like rolls of carpet and padding and stuff. That has to go in the can or it
Rolls
doesn't?
of carpet are a bulk item.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that I know that you're coming out, I think, with more info before the whole transition in January. I think a simple statement like that may help for some people. I've talked to neighbors and friends and family in the township, and I've mentioned that, and they said, "Oh no, that's not the case. That it has to go in the can. If it doesn't go in the can, it doesn't go." I think that's a simple statement to maybe make whenever you're giving your final whatever for people when the transition takes place. Second thing I wanted to bring up, there have been many people who have come to this microphone over the months and years and whatnot that I've been paying attention, and including myself, we've been told on numerous occasions that we're kind of like at the wrong point in the process, that we're asking questions about buildings or traffic and things like that, and we've been told that you should have shown up maybe at a zoning meeting or at a planning commission meeting or something when these particular buildings and apartment complexes, et cetera, are brought up. And I'm okay with that, and I've tried to do that on occasion. However, I, for one, find it very difficult to look at their agendas and figure out really what they're talking about. When the agenda item says something like 1700 Woodburn Road or 1268 Lincoln Highway, I have no clue where that is or what it is or anything else, and don't know if it's addressing what my concern is or whatever. I'm wondering if in their agendas, if statements could be added like, such and such Woodburn Road, the former whatever, or the neighboring business of such and such, so that you kind of know where it is. Otherwise, you got to kind of run around the township looking to see where is 1700 or what is 1268. And what really brings this to my immediate mind is it's pretty clear that something's happening at the, and this is going to date me a little bit, what I still call the I-95 Marketplace, which is the building next to Blue Pearl Animal Hospital. It's very clear that something is happening there, finally. And I have no clue what. I've been trying to find, I've looked at agendas, I've tried to figure out, what it is. Is it going to be an issue with more traffic or whatever? Is it something I'm concerned about? And I think part of that problem is that I can't figure it out by looking at those other agendas.
It's going to be a Lincoln Tech school.
Okay.
Lincoln Technical School.
Okay.
It didn't require coming before the board because it's mostly a fit out. And we'll take your recommendation for adding descriptors to the Planning Commission agendas. That makes sense.
I think it would help, and I see it in the zoning ones. They often mention a street address and a number of people who have been notified, but other than a tax parcel number, there's no other information there, and you don't know, I don't know what's going on or if I'm concerned or not. So if that could be added, it would be helpful, I think. The third thing, totally unrelated to the other two, I want to speak just a couple moments on behalf of Middletown Township's Youth Aid Panel. It's been quite some time since we've expressed some thanks to a couple of different people and so on. So I'd like to do that publicly tonight. First off, Chief Barbarilla and our police department, we all do appreciate the fact that they back the program. They keep us busy, which is nice, I suppose. It gets a little overwhelming at times, but I do want to thank the chief and the department for backing us, specifically Officer Missy Robinson, who is our liaison officer. She's given us just tremendous insight on things throughout, and it helps a great deal. I do want to thank a couple of individuals in particular for helping us out with one of our biggest problems, which is arranging community service. We do work a little bit with Andy Foley, who is a battalion chief at Pendle Middletown Rescue Squad. Andy has come through many times in allowing us to have kids go there and complete some tasks. And the one person who works with us, it seems like, and probably in his mind, countless hours, is our own Paul Copera. Paul of our Parks and Rec Department is always attempting and willing to lend a hand and allow us to get our kids, get some time in and hours in and so on. So I do want to just let those people know that we do appreciate it, and you know, it helps us out a great deal, and we certainly hope it continues. Thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Post, and I'll just, I will join in your recognition of the Youth Aid Panel and the work they do, and thank you for everything that you do as well. I would also just note, if you ever have a question about any project in the township that you see, you can always reach out to any of us or the township manager and just ask, and we're happy to tell you everything we know. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add in on, if you look on the Planning Commission's webpage, there is a link that has a list of the active projects that usually you can click and find the plans that's associated with certain projects. So it's sometimes it's not fully up to date, but it's, most of them are on there.
Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Tom Piacentino. I live at Country Lane in Millway Farms in northern Middletown. So I'm under the impression that somebody last meeting came up and talked to you about the sewage plant they want to put on Lower Silver Lake Road. And I know, like this gentleman said, of something about, you know, I think that train has already left the station. My questions for the township, and I don't know if this is too late to do anything or whatever, but as a resident that lives near there, and there's a lot of people who live very close to there, is there anything that the township can do to ensure that we're not going to get the aroma from it? And along with the aroma, germs or bacteria that come from it. Can I do my?
I'm not interrupting, please.
Okay. And then the other thing is, where is the water going to go that's been treated? Is it going to go into Silver Lake, or is it going to go into Lake Luxembourg, or is it going to get put into the ground? Now, a lot of us, including myself and my neighborhood, have wells, so I'm concerned about the possibility of the water being contaminated. So I know the township can't go over there and tell them you can't do this. It's not, it's not your jurisdiction and all, but I think the township could possibly look into making sure that the residents are protected in case there's something that goes wrong, or there's somewhere we can go with this. Instead of saying, go talk to Newtown, and they'll say, well, you live in Langhorne, you don't count.
So the short answer is we are. Do you want to?
Okay.
Yeah, sure. So we have invited them, and they have agreed to attend our December meeting to make a presentation about their plans, and we will have the opportunity to ask all of those questions. I have alerted them to the fact that those are the concerns that some of the members of the board have, as well as what we've heard from the residents about the smell, the impact, the water quality, and so on and so forth. So I expect that they will have a full presentation at our December meeting, which is December 16th.
Will there be a public, the ability of the public to give questions to at that point?
I think so. I think so.
Even though it's an agenda, it'll be an agenda item, correct?
There's, let's put it this way. I mean, formally, no, but I'll certainly allow public comments.
Okay.
And they did present to Newtown Borough, and they have a plan to present to Newtown Township as well. So I think they know that there are a lot of questions out there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
I know I've been heavily involved in and pushing for them to come talk to our board. I know we're at a really bad spot where we don't have a lot of say, but I think we as residents, I know I live up in the upper end, I have a well as well. So, understanding what that impact is going to be, what that odor impact is going to be, the mitigations that they're pushing through, what type of mitigation they're going to do for, bacteria in the air are really big concerns for myself as well as my neighbors. So I am heavily invested in getting information and understanding, what they're doing and how they're doing it.
Thank you, Ms. Keene. Yes, other public comment. Please state your name and address, sir.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Nowakowski. I live on Alberts Way in Langhorne, and I spoke about hate speech before this board 1 month ago. So I rise this evening to update our residents on some recent developments. As per a conversation earlier today with Middletown's elected tax collector, Ray Chapman, also chair of the Middletown Republican Committee, hate speech is beyond the purview of Mr. Chapman as committee chair. He has yet to issue a statement regarding hate speech on the Republican Committee, and in fact said today that things now rested with higher-ups in Doylestown. That's a curious position to espouse, since the former chair of the Republican Committee, Pat Mallon, managed to speak out against hate speech and anti-Semitism spewed by one of his former committee people. In fact, his strong words precipitated the forced resignation of our former disgraced township auditor, Christy Ann Morris. Funny how that works, you know? Some people summon the courage, exhibit the character, do the right thing. Whether the lights are on or not, you can count on them. While others, even when every reasonable person knows otherwise, silence. Now, sadly, not just as a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, not as a party operative or a disinterested observer, but simply as a considerate, kind human being, Mr. Chapman's silence in this matter is a stain on Middletown Township's affairs, and it makes me angry. And not just on behalf of our Jewish friends and neighbors, though I am rightly indignant on their account, but for every decent human out there, in this room and watching online, who sees this for what it is and what it was, an unprovoked attack on a group of people simply because of who they are. It is disgusting, it is hate speech, and it is unacceptable. Unless, of course, our elected tax collector, Ray Chapman, looks the other way and waves it off as in the past. No, sir. As I stated here last month, there is no statute of limitations on hate. And as long as our tax collector, Mr. Chapman, fails to summon the courage to do the right thing and call for the resignation once again of Christy Ann Morris, I will be here calling out not only his spinelessness, but also his gross negligence. Depending on what Mr. Chapman does, perhaps I will see you next month. Thank you for the time.
Other public comment on non-agenda items.
Yes?
Come on up.
Okay. Hi, my name is Beth Pollock. I'm really glad to be here. I live on Fir Tree Road in Forsythia Gate, Middletown Township. And I just spoke to Stephanie Coles, the township manager, before the meeting. She said I wrote a letter to West Rum Development, who is putting up Woodburn Ridge at 1700. Did everybody get a copy of my letter? Because not just the 5 supervisors, did all you, would you like, is it okay? Here. Okay. I volunteered for a year and a half at the RA Food Pantry in back of what was the Eisenhower School on the property of 1700 Woodburn Road, which is a 13-acre site that's going to be the home of the I think it's Woodburn Ridge Townhome Development. And I used to walk off into the food pantry and get a ride home, and I would walk across the wonderful big expanse of green lawn with probably more than 10 big old trees that are probably as old as Levittown itself. And I wrote this letter to West Rum Development, the people who are developing the townhome community, because I feel strongly that that it would be sacrilege to destroy these old trees, and that they would definitely be an asset to the community and the people who are going to be living there. I'm sure they would love the fact that they live in a community where they have these old trees that are like decades old. You know, they probably are going to plant new trees, but these old trees, I just feel that they should for aesthetic reasons, change the architectural plans to incorporate these trees into the design. So I spoke to Stephanie Coles before the meeting, and she said to contact Westrum Development because they're the people that are going to make the decision. So I'm going to do that. And is it okay with you guys if anybody here wants my letter, I'd be happy to give you a copy. Is it all right if I do this?
If you give
Does
copies.
anybody here want my letter? Anybody else? Okay, so I just think it would be, this is going to be a major thing at 1700 Woodburn Road. And I just think for the sake of Levittown, the people driving by every day in their cars on Woodburn Road, if they see this new development, but they see these beautiful old trees that are preserved, I think it just would really make the whole thing a better situation. Okay, so I'm glad to give you, everybody got my letter, and I'm glad to give it to you, and I'm going to send my letters to the CEO of Westrum, John Westrum, as well as the attorney. And, these trees are precious, and I just hope that, they will be willing to do what's right and keep these trees. So thank you very much. Does anybody else want my letter? Okay, you're welcome to it. Sure, anybody else want, okay. There you go. You're welcome. Anyone else want my letter? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on non-agenda items? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Board. Lance Segers, 98 Queen Lily. Coming in because probably about 6 months to a year ago, residents in Quincy got letters from PICO. Hey, we're going to be doing line maintenance. Came in and just kind of scorched earth everything on New Falls Road. Kind of took away a lot of the natural barrier from New Falls Road, from the sun, from noise, everything. And we're used to line maintenance, but, that was a lot. But then when I look at Lower Orchard and some of the things they did down there and adding extra poles and sort of just making things unsightly, we just received a letter from PICO recently saying, hey, there's going to be some outages. We're going to be doing some line improvements. I'm thinking most likely PICO is going to start adding more poles, and we're going to have like double sets of poles going down New Falls. No natural, tree line, anything like that. And it just makes it very unsightly. I'm wondering, what is the township's, what can you guys do in regards to PICO to figure out what they're going to do, what they plan on doing, how we can make sure that they just don't come in and, make everything unsightly.
Yeah. Mr. Esposito, do you want to talk about what they're... Basically, PICO doing line maintenance and how the condition that they leave the property behind them after they're done. To be honest, I've had similar concerns in other locations where I've seen that before, where they sort of just come in and then the way it looks when they leave is disappointing.
Yeah, I know a few years ago we had it all along Terryton.
Yeah.
Had the same thing, so I know we had questions. Do we have any resolution from when that happened? So.
I was just going to mention that I actually have a meeting scheduled with the government affairs rep from PICO. I'm happy to make this a topic for discussion with him.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Board.
Any other public comment on non-agenda items? Yes.
I'm sorry. I forgot to just mention something. First of all, when I was outside, the flagpole on the side of this building where there's an American flag? Well, I just thought I'd mention that I looked up at the flag, at the American flag, and it's not like flying because it's not windy or anything. But the flag, when I looked up in it, it really seems like the flag itself right out there is in really deteriorating condition. So I thought I would just mention that, I think that they should really put a new flag there. And the other thing is, I noticed that on Trenton Road in Middletown Township, right in Levittown, where Trenton Road meets Hartwood Road, Highland Park, for several years, there's these tree stumps, some 8 are tall and 4 are short. There's these tree stumps, and it's just really very unsightly. And I want to get my facts straight because I thought maybe the township could take care of it to remove these tree stumps. And I thought they said that each person's property that's where those tree stumps are located, it's up to them. So I just want to get it straight because, you know, I'm thinking Earth Day is coming up next April, and I think all the cars going by on Trenton Road and going to Highland Park, they would just really welcome if these tree stumps weren't there anymore. So I was just wondering, to get rid of these tree stumps, is that an issue that the township takes care of? Or,
That's
Not if it's on
something-
private property. We don't.
Yeah,
we can't-
that's something
private.
we've talked about, that the township has no ability to
so I
tell
would have
them
to
because it's,
contact
yeah,
the individual owners.
just
whose-
because it's unsightly doesn't mean that we can require them to take it down.
All right, okay. But I just hope you replace that flag. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda items. They are as follows. Item A, consideration of authorizing payment of the November 18th, 2024 bills list in the amount of $1,933,483.86. B, consideration of approving the October 21 minutes of the public meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors and the budget work session meetings for October 28th. C, consideration of approving 2024 Middletown Township Liquid Fuels Road Program change order number 2 for a negative $82,490.99 adjustment of final quantities and contract items for project closeout. D, consideration of approving 2024 Middletown Township Liquid Fuels Road Program payment certificate number 2 final in the amount of $85,338.27 for completed work and project closeout. E, consideration of approving financial security release number 4 final for completed work and the completion of the project for the Penswood Village Additions Land Development S/LD number 21-2 in the amount of $58,809.30. F, consideration of a resolution number 24-23R for submission of an application to the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development statewide local share account program. G, consideration of the sewer planning module resolution number 24-24R for 517 Deer Drive subdivision S/LD number 23-6 for support of the applicant's sewer planning module. H, consideration of approving retirement agreement and general release for Officer Corey Huff. I, consideration of accounting services contract. J, consideration of lease with Rise Up Towers Bucks One LLC for municipal communications equipment on cell tower. K, consideration of change order to trash and recycling contract to add Windy Bush neighborhood as a manual trash collection. And L, consideration of approving location and architectural design of structure at 1475 Langhorne Yardley Road. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items as read.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Is there a second?
A second.
Thanks, Ms. Kane. There's been a motion and a second. Any board questions?
Yeah, I just have 2 items to talk through quickly. The change order for the recycling contract, I know we're kind of at the whim of Waste Management, but the amount seems excessive. I think I calculated as almost over $800 per house that we'll be paying for the manual collection once a week. Is that correct?
Well, so this is one of those neighborhoods that we didn't contemplate when we did the bid. We weren't expecting that this was going to be manual collection. It came to our attention about halfway through. And so, so the bid was already opened and already awarded. So we, at this point, need to add Windy Bush, and we are at the mercy of the contractor. So yes, it is costly. We won't have to change the sort of advertised rate that we've been talking to our residents about, because there is a small administrative cushion built in to that fund. But yeah, I mean,
And
it
just
is what it is. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, just to clarify, that cost is over the entire 5 years. It's not $800 additional per year per house. So it's, you know, about $200 additional per home for the 5-year term.
Okay. Yeah, well, we're already paying the $475, right?
Correct.
Per house. So
Yes.
that's- Right. So
Yeah.
it gets
And
us.
we know manual collection is significantly more expensive than
Yeah,
automated.
I just know
And
it gets us to almost where the double collection was. I just didn't know if we had any insight into why it was as expensive as it was.
We will make sure that it is bid appropriately the next time. Again, we targeted neighborhoods that we knew weren't going to work for automated collection. This is not one that we contemplated.
Yeah, there were residents that spoke out after the bid was already advertised and in motion that said, hey, we really think you should consider this, and this is one that, as staff, we do recommend stay manual.
Okay. And the other one was, I didn't know if you were able to just bring up the 1475 Langhorne Yardley Road. I couldn't quite see it in the...
I don't have it prepared to bring up.
Okay.
Just so that everyone knows that that is the parcel that is in the middle of Stiers. And there was a settlement agreement that gives the township the right of first refusal anytime it is up for sale. We are always saying no to that. And one of the other aspects of that settlement agreement is that the board can sign off on the elevation of what that looks like. If you're not comfortable moving forward, we could give you something more updated. I can tell you you're not going to be able to see it. You can't see this from the roadway. It is deep into Stiers.
That's what I couldn't really tell, so...
Yeah, it's deep,
Okay.
deep into the Stiers property.
I'll mention too that the main review focused on that was that it was going to be within the envelope that was going to be allowed for the structure. So there was a lot of restrictions as far as the setback from the property lines and where it is within that, I guess, settled envelope. And that was the correspondence that Building and Zoning Department and our office had with the applicant to make sure they were complying with all the agreements that are in place for the property.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm just looking at what's depicted in your packet. It shows that really long drive to the sort of deep parcel. And overall, you can see that in the dwelling. And the most important thing, what you're approving is the elevation. So that elevation, I think, is pretty clear. And it sort of looks like a modern style building.
Any other board questions on the consent agenda items? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Consent agenda items pass 4-0. Next on the agenda, consideration of the lot line change approval for 735 Harding Avenue, Langhorne, Pennsylvania, 19047, TMP number 22-039-010-001 S/LD number 24-4R1 Residence District. Yes, sir.
Yes, hi, I'm Matthew Feiner. I'm an attorney. I represent Edmund Turner and Linda Turner regarding this lot line change. This is S/LD number 24-4. It's in the south of Middletown Township. This is a lot line change. We're seeking a waiver approval today from the township related to the size of the lot line change. This is approximately a 5,000 square foot sliver of land in the same zone, which is multi-residential, between two neighbors. We do have an agreement of sale. The other side is Maryland bound. So her lot's about 30,000 square feet, and my clients are 12,000 or so. So the lot line would actually render these two properties more of similar size. From 30 to 12 to now what would be approximately 25 to 17, which is consistent with a lot of the properties in this same zone. There is no plans for redevelopment of this lot at this time. It's really a stretch of grass in the backyard of one of the properties and off to the side of the other. And so we would move that this waiver be approved and field any questions that the board has.
Any board members have questions?
I just wanted to note, just to clarify the requested waiver a bit, the waiver is for the percentage increase of the lot. So as you mentioned, the lot results in a similar size, but they're requesting an increase of 38.5%, where per the code, 20% was the max increase. So it's a waiver for the percentage increase of the lot.
And you have no objection with that?
No, we have no objection.
And the Planning Commission unanimously approved or recommended?
They did, yes.
All right, I'll make a motion to grant lot line change approval for 735 Harding Avenue, Langhorne, PA 19047, TMP 22-039-010-001 and 22-039-010-006 with the following conditions. Applicant shall comply in full with all requirements of the Middletown Township Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance and the Middletown Township Zoning Ordinance unless relief is granted by the body having jurisdiction. 2, all comments still outstanding in review letters shall be fully addressed for plans to be considered final, including the approvals of outside agencies for completion of the plans in their jurisdiction. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been a motion and a second. Any board questions at this time? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Carries 4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
very much.
Next on the agenda, we are going to have a presentation on the Woods School petition to rezone. Mr. McGinnis.
Thank you. Good evening, Mike McGinnis here on behalf of Woods Services. Our office, on behalf of Woods, filed an overlay petition recently in the township, which impacts Woods' 11 parcels in Middletown. Woods owns and operates a significant amount of land in the township. We have, I think, on the screen, or was on the screen, and hopefully we'll be back on the screen.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. We're having technical difficulties.
It's perfect timing.
There we go.
Thank you. Before you is an aerial which depicts the parcels which Woods owns. I'll make the representation that they total a little over 200 acres. All of the properties that Woods owns, which are the subject of this petition, are located in the R1 district in the township. The R1 district is really designed almost exclusively for single-family detached dwellings, which is not what Woods offers or how the site was historically developed or improved. Woods' properties in the aggregate have dozens of buildings on them. The R1 does not make sense, I would submit, for Woods, and the reality is it has created a litany of issues whenever Woods has made any changes whatsoever to the campus with respect to a zoning analysis. I'm not going to detail right this second the variety of uses and buildings on the campus, but just to provide a very brief summary, Woods provides vocational and adult day services, as well as health and wellness services for its clients. Woods offers neuro rehab facilities, medical services, dental services, and other similar institutional services for individuals with disabilities, including housing, which you could imagine is more complex given the clients that Woods services than the standard R1 single-family detached dwelling. The reality is it's not just the R1 district. There is not a single zoning district in the township that I think adequately captures Woods' historic usage in Middletown. The main purpose of the overlay is twofold, really. It's to address a variety of items retroactively and to provide flexibility prospectively, given the complex changing dynamics of the industry within which Woods operates. Our plan and our hope procedurally is to cover this in greater detail on our end, moving forward with the Township Planning Commission, and to come back to the supervisors to do a full presentation regarding Woods' future vision for their properties in the township. We also have one of our parcels, which is 22-21-55-002, which is approximately 20 acres, which is under agreement with BET. Mike Markman and Peter Clellan are here tonight on behalf of BET, and I will turn the floor over to them in a second to handle that component of this presentation and to give you a little bit of information about who BET is and what they're looking to do here. And then again, at the conclusion of this, and we're happy to answer any questions, our formal request is to have the board authorize the advertisement of the ordinance, and then again, come back before you with a full-scale presentation, both on BET's end and Woods' end, before we request any dispositive action taken by the board. So I appreciate you providing some time for us to address the board this evening. And again, after Michael or Peter provide some additional commentary, we would be happy collectively to answer any questions you have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGinnis. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Michael Markman. I'm the president of BET Investments. We're developers based in Dresher, Pennsylvania. We're currently the contract purchaser of the 20-acre parcel, which is crosshatched on the plan, as you see. We have multiple property types, but our intention would be to develop that particular property as a mixed-use property containing some retail and some residential apartments on the property, a combination, kind of a live shop situation where people could go and live in a building and shop on the same parcel and hopefully enjoy living there. So we've put together a presentation for the Planning Commission, which we'll work through with them, and then it's our intention to get their comments and then come back to you and get whatever comments we would have from you. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from any board members for either Mike? So what do we need to do tonight? Do we need to move to advertise? Do we need to do anything?
So, yeah, so they filed a petition to rezone. So what it needs to go to now is get reviewed by the Bucks County Planning Commission as well as the Middletown Planning Commission. They're essentially just looking for you to authorize it moving forward. And then if, depending on what the Planning Commission say, it would come back in front of the board for a full presentation and for your consideration whether you want to enact it or deny it or so. So right now it's just you authorizing it moving forward in the process for a petition to rezone.
All right, so I will make a motion to move forward with advertising the petition to rezone. Is that
Yes.
right? Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any board questions?
So I was not under the impression that we were making a motion tonight, based on my email this morning. When will the board be able to go through in detail? I mean, this is multiple pages of an overlay, to make sure that we are comfortable and there's enough guardrails in here, and really the public can really see what's happening.
I think part of our intention of coming this evening was to introduce this publicly. We're not asking, again, for action regarding passage of the overlay. It's to request the township to authorize between our office and Mr. Esposito's office advertisement, and we will then, at subsequent public meetings, both at the Planning Commission, hopefully, I think December 4th, be able to do a full presentation, go through the ordinance, go through the vision that both BET has and Woods has, take the comments back from the Planning Commission, take the commentary back that we would receive from the Bucks County Planning Commission, take those into account, and then hopefully make a subsequent presentation in detail to the board. So I would just underscore on our end that we're not asking for the board's blessing this evening to approve the overlay. It's just to allow us really to get out of the gates, to take the comments that we need back and then to come back subsequently and provide all of that information.
All right, I know I'm probably a no on this, just knowing that I don't have a really great feel of all the answers question. I know I asked the board, the township team to kind of review it in detail with me. So again, I know moving it down the process, it's one step away from us being able to really kind of make an impact on it.
Yeah, I'll just say I think this is, all we're doing tonight is essentially green lighting the ability to take the next step in the process, which is have it go before the two planning commissions, county and township. We're a long way away from us actually voting on a plan for land development or a new ordinance. But I understand your point. Any other comments from any board members? Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the public? Yes, sir.
I agree with.
Can you just come to the microphone, sir?
Thanks. I agree with Supervisor Kane. I was just looking these guys up online. They have several extremely large projects in the works in Conshohocken, in Montgomery County, off of Welsh Road. Average rents, $2,500 a month, $700 million projects over the past couple of months. I'm talking August, September, October. Things are happening right now. I would urge, wait a little bit, see how they operate with everybody else, see what the other boards and authorities have to say, see if they're operating in good faith, because a lot of times what these groups do is they get the zoning a certain way, or they get a positive result from some board or some committee, and then they strong-arm things, and you're sort of forced into saying yes because land is zoned a certain way, and you have no recourse. So I would say pump the brakes a little bit, wait another month, let's see what happens, let them revisit it. There's no rush. Thank you.
Other public comments? Yes, sir.
And with respect to the things that Woods does, I think they provide a lot of great services, but this is not about Woods' historic role in Middletown Township or anything like that. This is about the sale of land, trying to get it rezoned from R1, because if the public doesn't understand what that means is R1 can't have apartments on it. It needs to be single-family homes, schooling, different things like that. But then BET can't develop it, or they don't want to develop it because they wouldn't make as much money. Knowing that this board has been, not just by myself, but from other residences or other residents in regards to the overdevelopment of Middletown Township, I don't know why we'd even consider this. If Woods wants to present a plan to alter the zoning to better satisfy their clients and not sell land to build apartments, then they can certainly do that. But why would the board even consider it, frankly? So, thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments? Yes, sir.
Eric Brunos, 79 Sweetcomb. I'm going to echo what both of them said. If we're talking strictly about rezoning, again, with respect to Woods and the great works they do, I don't see why there's no reason to rezone it unless it is absolutely impeding the work, the actual work, not the, well, we want to sell off this property, this parcel of land over to another developer, and we're trying to kind of back this into it and make it a little bit easier for the developer to sell and make, that. So it doesn't make sense to switch the zoning if it's not actually towards the mission of the Woods. And I would have to see a plan from the Woods why rezoning is going to further their mission. So again, this is just backing into being able to sell to a developer, again, which Lance and everyone else has told you constantly over the past year, we're getting overdeveloped anyway. But so I am also against the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments? Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes, nay?
Nay.
Passes 3-1. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Next on the agenda, we have Bucks County Planning Commission review of zoning ordinance. Mr. Ennis.
Good evening. You may recall, I guess it was March of last year, this board approved to establish a contract with the Bucks County Planning Commission to do a full analysis of the R1 and R2 zoned properties within the Levittown area. This was a long-running thing needed for this township, given that many of those properties, the residents within those properties, were continuously going before the zoning hearing board for numerous years, requesting variances for building coverage percentage maximums and impervious coverage maximums, which almost always were approved. So the Bucks County Planning Commission did a full analysis using map data, using property deeds, and also going through several years of zoning hearing board cases and came up with some recommendations. One of the recommendations is to change certain parts of the R2 zoned properties within Levittown to R3 because those properties already are non-conforming to the zoning ordinance. They're already undersized. And so this way, with this new zoning district for certain areas of the R2, or what is currently R2, you would now have property owners that no longer have non-conforming properties and also maybe have more ability to do with their something with their property without having to go to the zoning hearing board. Furthermore, you also have some recommendations that were provided by the Bucks County Planning Commission when it came to stormwater management requirements that could possibly be added to the zoning code, all in effort because they know that if with more coverage means more stormwater drainage and runoff issues. And so therefore, to mitigate those issues, we're looking to probably put some stormwater management measures in the zoning ordinance. This is a long way of saying that the Bucks County Planning Commission has fulfilled their contract with the township. You have their PowerPoint presentation that they provided to the Township Planning Commission last month, as well as also a draft of some text amendments, possible text amendments for the stormwater management requirements. Next steps would be township management, township legal, engineering, planning and zoning, as well as others, to look at the recommendations and then figure out how to move forward with possible text amendments and map amendments for 2025 in an effort to finally solve this issue that's been an issue for, ongoing within the township for numerous years.
Thank you, Mr. Ennis. Any board questions for Mr. Ennis?
How long, like if we give this the green light tonight, like how long do you think the whole process will take to be
Yeah, excellent.
finished?
Yeah, excellent question. So, you know, again, it would have to now be the township staff getting their hands dirty, looking at what the Bucks County Planning Commission actually recommends, figuring out what would be the best options for the township. And then not only like what we've already been talking about, but this would not be a developer-driven text amendment. This would be a township-driven text amendment and map amendment. Hopefully, I would love to say by mid-year next year, we actually have something on its feet to be enacted into the zoning code.
So go ahead, now go.
Is this we're looking at the entire township, R1 to R2, or is it just some certain sections?
It was just certain sections. This is primarily Levittown area properties that were in the R2 zoning district specifically. I mean, there were some R1 zoning district properties, but more so R2 zone properties. The ones that are honestly that were established in the 50s, well before zoning, that are roughly anywhere from 7,000 to 8,000 square feet in size, where the R2 zoning district requires a minimum of 10,000 square feet. So all those property owners that have those smaller lots are at a disadvantage of doing just about anything to their property without having to go before the zoning hearing board.
Yeah, and my understanding is the zoning was put on after development, correct?
Stephanie said it best, I believe, if you remember back March of last year, the zoning came to Levittown, not the other way around.
So do we need to take action tonight?
No, it's just giving you an information that the Bucks County Planning Commission fulfilled their contract.
Got it.
And if I could just add real quick, and Bernadette is actually saying the same thing, is to just remind everyone that the whole purpose of this is that those residents in Levittown, anytime they want to do anything, they have to come before the zoning hearing board, because the zoning that overlays their property does not match the size of their property.
That's correct.
So that's what we're hoping to correct.
It's a burden on those residents and on the zoning hearing board.
Right. Yeah, they've got 2 hearings this month.
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, consideration of adopting a memorandum agreement with Teamsters Local 107 and Department of Public Works Association for 3-year collective bargaining agreements. Ms. Teal-Cools.
Happy to report that we successfully negotiated 2 collective bargaining agreements between the beginning of the fall and this evening. So we present for you this evening the memoranda of agreement with both the Teamsters Local 107 and the Association of the Public Works Department. Both contracts are 3-year terms. Both have 4% wage increases. Both transition the employees to a health savings account funding arrangement for health care and include an increase in the employee contribution toward health care. Bunch of other things that we work to get to have as many of our components of employee benefits to be similar across different employee groups. Negotiating the 2 of them at the same time was really helpful in that regard. There were some more significant changes made in the Teamsters contract, classifying employees appropriately and making some changes related to the Department of Fire and Emergency Services. So I would just request that the board authorize both of these documents, and then we would move toward formalizing them and having the language all ready to go before the start of 2025.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Dealy-Cools? If not, I can accept the motion.
I move to approve a memorandum of agreement with the Teamsters Local 107 and a memorandum of agreement with the Independent Association of Middletown Township Public Works Employees.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Is there a second?
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 4-0. Thank you, Ms. Dealy-Cools. Next on the agenda, consideration of enacting ordinance number 24-05, Early Retirement Incentive Program. Mr. Valla.
Yes, good evening, Supervisors. I have the first of several ordinances for consideration. This one is at the end of the process. This one is an early retirement incentive program. We identified and are recommending a program for employees who will be age 65 or over by the end of this calendar year, who have been gainfully employed with the township full-time for 10 years or more as of that same time. There's currently 7 employees, and to clarify, this is for non-uniform or non-police employees. There's 7 employees who qualify. 5 of them are actually in the Department of Public Works. There's a cost savings to the township, regardless of any iteration of employees that do or don't take us up on this offer. And if the ordinance passes tonight, it's an amendment to the pension ordinance, so employees would be have the ability to opt into this program. It's 100% voluntary by the end of this week. In addition to that program, since we're amending the pension ordinance, as Ms. Dealy-Cools reported with the union contracts, there is one minor change to the non-uniform pension plan, reducing the retirement age, which we're including in the same ordinance that has an actuarial improvement to the township's MLO.
Thank you, Mr. Valla. Any questions? Seeing none, I can accept a motion.
I'll move to enact ordinance 2405, amending Chapter 70 of the Middletown Township Code of Ordinances, establishing an early retirement incentive program for non-uniform employees.
Thank you, Ms. Kane. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carries 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Valla. Next one is U2, which is consideration of authorizing an advertisement of an ordinance to amend the solid waste and recycling ordinance.
Yes, so this is strictly a housekeeping item. This is something that we generally look at the start or coming to the start of a new solid waste and recycling contract. The only substantive change here is just adjusting the allowable container size. Right now, it's like the 35-gallon, which of course is going to be larger. And I should clarify too, this ordinance is very general for anybody who wishes to read it. This provides just general regulations for both residential and commercial, including like HOA neighborhoods that facilitate their own trash. And so the township's contract with Waste Management provides additional controls. And I do also just 2 other points of housekeeping for the residents listening. The new bins are going to be coming to homes the first 2 weeks of December, anywhere between December 2nd and December 14th. They will be delivered to your home, to your driveway, so be on the lookout for those. And the first day you can put them at the curb will be the week of January 6th. And the burning question of when is my trash day? I'm glad you asked. Let's see, which camera am I looking at? Is it over there? So everyone is going to be getting this mailer. It's a trifold brochure. It'll have your address on it. It has some information about the different information with the new service. It has a whole calendar in here, if you can kind of see it. And then it'll actually say at the bottom of this green panel, your new service day is, and it'll be either Monday through Friday. And so that'll be coming to mailboxes. They just went out a couple days ago, so sometime between now and Thanksgiving. If folks don't see it by, I would say, by the time you get your trash cans in December, you can certainly contact us at the township and we'll help you figure that out.
Thank you for all that information. Any board questions, either about the draft ordinance or the new trash contract generally? All right, I'll move to authorize the township solicitor to draft and advertise an ordinance amending the solid waste and recycling ordinance. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 4-0. Next, consideration of authorizing advertisement of an ordinance establishing compensation for the Board of Supervisors. Ms. Dioli-Cools.
Thank you. A law was passed earlier this year addressing the compensation of elected officials in the Commonwealth. The second-class township code was specifically amended to allow for municipalities in our population category for supervisors to be paid $8,385. That is annually, $8,385. The current number is $5,000. It has been many years since that has been increased. Basically, the state constitution does not allow any elected official to vote on a benefit that will impact them. And so if you would like to increase the compensation for future elected members of this board, you would need to adopt an ordinance to do so. And so if you would like to do that, you would need to make a motion to authorize that we prepare and advertise such an ordinance. And it would impact those people who are elected in next year's municipal election.
Yeah, so again, what I want to be clear about this is not the members of this board increasing their own compensation. We would not benefit for this. This would be for potentially any future folks who successfully run for township supervisor. As Ms. Dioli-Cools indicated, the compensation has not been adjusted for a very, very long time. In addition, though it's still fairly modest, perhaps an increase in compensation might encourage other people to want to get more involved in their community and run for local office and participate like the five of us do, because it's always great to have new people involved in local government. So that was the impetus for bringing this to the board tonight for consideration. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Dioli-Cools? Okay, then I'll make a motion to authorize advertisement of an ordinance establishing compensation for the Board of Supervisors. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Carries 3-1. Thank you, Ms. Dioli-Cools. Next on the agenda, consideration of authorizing advertisement of an ordinance regulating small games of chance. Chief Barbarella.
Good evening, Mr. Kizak, Ms. Payne, Ms. Kane. Real briefly, before I read this proposal, I want to briefly thank Sheldon for all the work he does with our youth aid panel. Us and Ben Salem combined make up about 50% of all the youth aid panel cases in Bucks County. So we really do get a lot of mileage out of our youth aid panel, and Sheldon puts in a lot of work. Rita Bakshi, who chairs our township youth aid panel, and all of our volunteers really do an excellent job. So tomorrow night is the county's annual youth aid panel banquet, honoring all of the youth aid panel volunteers in the county. I'm pretty sure Sheldon will be there. I will be there, as well as Officer Missy. So we are looking forward to that. I just wanted to mention that because our youth aid panel does an excellent job, and a lot of times they don't get the recognition they deserve. So now on to the proposed ordinance. In recent years, several municipalities in Lower Bucks County, including ours, Middletown Township, have seen a marked increase in the number of unregulated electronic gaming devices commonly referred to as skill games. They're sort of like mini slot machines. These devices have been installed in a variety of establishments, such as convenience stores, smoke shops, gas stations, and delis throughout the region, including several in Middletown Township itself. As of last week, it's estimated that more than 60 of these, we counted about 65 unregulated machines, are currently operating in local businesses within our township. While Middletown Township has not yet experienced any major incidents directly related to these devices, a neighboring municipality in Bucks County has seen a criminal event occur because of these machines. The specific incident happened in Ben Salem Township, involved the theft of $190,000 cash from a vehicle owned by a skill game machine operator, which occurred while the owner was servicing one of the machines. Because these devices are not regulated by the state's Gaming Control Board and are not classified as illegal under the state crimes code, the responsibility to regulate them falls to individual municipalities. To address this growing concern, I'm considering an ordinance that would regulate the use of these devices and limit their number within the township. Such an ordinance would help preserve the quality of life in Middletown while reducing the risk of criminal activity near businesses that host these machines. Unregulated skill games often involve large cash transactions, increasing the potential for loitering and disorderly conduct around the establishments that house them. The proposed ordinance would prohibit skill games in all businesses within Middletown Township, with the exception of those holding a valid state liquor license in good standing. Liquor licensed establishments that choose to operate these machines would be limited to a certain maximum number of machines per establishment, be required to isolate them in designated areas that can be monitored by both staff and video surveillance, and access would be restricted to adults only. No minors would be permitted. Violations of the proposed ordinance would result in penalties, including fines of up to $1,000 per day for each day of noncompliance. Continued violations may lead to more severe actions, such as a cease operations order or even the revocation of the business's township license. By regulating these devices at the local level, the township seeks to promote a safer environment, ensuring that our township remains a vibrant, thriving community where residents can enjoy a high quality of life. These measures proposed by this ordinance are designed to maintain order and create a sense of security and well-being for everyone who calls Middletown Township home. So I do have an excellent article that was published by City and State Pennsylvania in August 2024 that talks about these skill games and the difficulty in managing them at the state level and regulating them. But if the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Any questions for the chief?
No, but just a continued thank you to bring these types of things to our attention, address them as soon as we can.
Yep, absolutely.
Other questions? Is there a motion?
I move to authorize the advertisement of an ordinance regulating games of chance within Middletown Township.
Thank you, Ms. Kane. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries 4-0. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Kizak.
Next on the agenda, consideration of authorizing advertisement of an ordinance updating school zones. Mr. Valla.
Yes, good evening. Another minor ordinance update for folks who are probably familiar. They've seen the new elementary school, Court Creek Elementary, erected next to Maple Point Middle School. It's set to open in January. Just a housekeeping item, the township has to regulate school zones. So, that's what regulates 15-mile-an-hour speed limit when school is opening or closing for the day. The ordinance we have is from 1999 and is extremely outdated, and so this is probably the most housekeeping in the truest sense of the word, and really bringing it up to 2024 standards and removing and adding schools as appropriate.
Anything significant or substantive changing in the ordinance?
The biggest thing, and this will be working with the township solicitor, if there's any language for enforcement for police purposes, that's really probably the biggest opportunity here, but it's really just updating the list of schools.
Are they including a school zone along Woodburn Road for this? I know there's not really any any homes on that side.
Yeah, I believe it's still going to be signed for a school zone. I believe Mr. Kessler can probably speak to that a little bit better, but I believe that is one thing they are doing.
They do have the crossing into the park on the Woodburn side as well. So it wouldn't be, I don't think, the whole length of the school property there, but as you get closer to the intersection, it would be part of the school zone around kind of the L of the property.
Any other questions? All right, I'll move to authorize the township solicitor to draft and advertise an ordinance amending Chapter 470 of the Middletown Township Code of Ordinances to update the school zone ordinance. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Valla. Next on the agenda, Stormwater Advisory Committee report and consideration of authorizing advertisement of an ordinance establishing a stormwater fee to be assessed beginning in 2025. Mr. Vella.
Yes, good evening. So as the board has recalled, during their meetings earlier this year in July, you appointed an ad hoc advisory committee, the Stormwater Advisory Committee, of 7 residents to address infrastructure concerns related to stormwater, and then also assess the feasibility of a stormwater impact fee. The committee is recommending a stormwater impact fee, and I'll kind of back into what that looks like and how they got there. And the purpose of the fee is to provide, maintain, and repair stormwater management infrastructure and assure water quality throughout the township. The committee met 5 separate times through August and October to discuss the proposed projects. The township engineer was heavily involved in helping to identify and justify those proposed infrastructure projects. There's about $1.5 million of infrastructure projects planned just in the next 5 years alone, and that's really about the bare minimum. There was a public meeting held on October 14th. We had about 20 residents attend who were interested in hearing about this topic. And we even had some model stormwater pipes for folks to really get a sense of how undersized, if it even exists at all, our stormwater infrastructure is in this township. And as we've already talked about at this meeting tonight, a lot of this township was developed long before contemporary standards that we adhere to today were in place. And so we have plenty of neighborhoods. Langhorne Gables, the one we talk about probably the most often here, as a neighborhood that has, when it was built, completely no stormwater infrastructure whatsoever. So the fee that the committee is recommending is a flat fee for residential properties. So anybody that has a residential single-family home or townhome style, it's working out to a $5 a month or $60 per year fee that they are recommending to the board. And then on the commercial side, and this would include like apartment complexes, the complex would pay it. The committee is proposing a tiered fee structure based upon the actual impervious surface. So the more impervious, or if the rain can't penetrate the ground, the more of that you have, the higher your fee would be. And in recognizing that there's going to be a couple of individual large properties that would be subject to a pretty hefty fee, the committee is also recommending a cap of $6,000 per year on that. And so the tiered fee is various ranges. About every 2,000 square feet of impervious goes from $12 a month, $18.24, and then the top, anything over 8,000 square feet of impervious, is kind of a calculation at a rate of $12 a month per 4,000 square feet, and again, that maximum of $6,000 a year. The expected annual revenue is about $1.79 million. And the purpose of that is to underwrite the cost of maintaining and providing stormwater infrastructure. One of the committee's recommendations, they were very concerned and dialed into the issue of maintenance of what we do already have in this township. And so with that, there is an allocation of $200,000 of expected revenue from a stormwater impact fee that is budgeted to the general fund to cover the cost of maintaining infrastructure, both staff time as well as contracted services. One of the other things that was talked about that the board will have the opportunity to contemplate with this is whether or not to make a standing stormwater advisory committee at which you'd have the ability to appoint folks to it, just like you would any other standing committee advising the Board of Supervisors. Last but not least, just a procedural item. This would be in the form of an ordinance should the board wish to proceed. And so tonight you would be authorizing advertisement of the ordinance like you've done for several other items this evening. And so it would have to come back before the board before it is finally put into place.
Just to sort of just quickly make sure we highlight the key points. So this would be $5 a month or $60 a year for residential parcels. For commercial properties, it depends on the amount of impervious area. And then the expectation is that the total projected annual revenue would be about $1.7 million. $200,000 of that would go to maintaining our current infrastructure, and then $1.5 for new stormwater projects.
Yes, exactly. And then I believe Ms. Tulikuls had a point.
Yep.
I just wanted to add that the Environmental Advisory Board also met, discussed, and made the recommendation that the board move forward with this, primarily because of the water quality projects that we'll be able to fund now that we aren't able to at the current time.
So, I mean, just a couple quick comments, and then we can take questions. I've been on this board for 6 years plus now, I guess, and this is something that we have talked about annually as long as I've been here. I think it's undeniable that our stormwater infrastructure is not adequate to meet the needs of our residents. We, as supervisors, and I'm sure all the township staff, I'm sure Mr. Gartenmeyer, hear regularly from residents about stormwater concerns and the impact that stormwater has on their properties. We've been doing what we can with what we have year after year after year, but I think, and I said this before, I think the responsible and prudent thing for the township to do is to come up with a more long-term fix. And I really just want to thank and commend all the members of the Stormwater Advisory Committee. Those 7 residents stepped up. They did a lot of work. I mean, really rolled their sleeves up and spent a lot of time analyzing and considering, asking difficult questions. I also want to thank the Environmental Advisory Committee for all the work they did, reviewing and analyzing. It's always nice when you've got 2 advisory boards coming to us with unanimous recommendations for something like this. And so I want to say that I'm pleased that we've gotten to this point, and again want to thank all the residents that were involved in the process. And thanks Mr. Valla, Mr. Kessler, Ms. Dioli-Cools, and everybody else who was involved in shepherding this through. Yes?
I just wanted to make sure the board knew that you have 3 members of the committee present tonight.
Excellent. Well, thank you to those individuals who are here tonight for their contributions. Very, very much appreciated. And obviously, if you're here and you have anything you want to say, I'm more than welcome to give you the microphone and have you come up and say anything you want about the process or the recommendation. Yeah, Mr. Feather, come on up.
Bob Feather, 35-year resident, Middletown Township, live in Highland Park. How are you? Nice to see you all. This advisory board that we put together, we went over a number of things, and we did come up with what we felt was the best way in which we could address this. Our last meeting, we left with a couple of questions and concerns, and we were hoping to get some information to follow up on those concerns prior to getting to this point and moving forward. We received some information on the 15th, which was Friday. I sent an email out last night with some additional questions and some additional concerns, which I've included all of you on that email. And I believe that these questions, these concerns are still at the point where we need some more information related to those so we can move forward in an appropriate way and do this the right way for the residents of Middletown Township. So I believe that there are still some unanswered questions and still some concerns that have not been addressed. So I will ask the board to table this, at least for now, until we get those answers and we can actually address those issues and move forward.
I mean, do you want to tell us what those questions are? Because I was under the understanding that there was a unanimous recommendation from your committee to move forward with the stormwater.
With the stipulation of getting the information that, with regard to the questions that we had asked, and we didn't, in my opinion, get the adequate information that we requested.
The full board voted. Mr. Feather is the only person whose vote was conditioned. Upon receiving additional information, we did attempt to send as much of the information as we could. Obviously, it's the day we're presenting the budget. We didn't have time today to respond to questions from last night.
So what is still outstanding that you're looking for information on?
Would you like me to read the entire email? Because I'll be more than happy to do that, but it will take some time.
Well,
I have them outlined, but again, I sent everything to you, all of you, and our committee, and I just believe that we have questions that are unanswered, and we have some concerns that have not been addressed, and I'm asking you to just table it until we get the answers for these issues. What I'm saying, or what I'm suggesting, is that I don't think the $5 fee per month, I think we can lower it for residents. I truly believe that we are not doing what our diligence with these numbers that we should be or we can be doing for the residents of the township. That's all. That's the bottom line. The emails there, I'm not going to go into detail here unless you truly want me to.
I'm happy to clarify some of the things that you've been mentioning from the meetings and the latest email. And I thank you for your contribution to the advisory committee as well as the other members that are here tonight and that we met with. And the main goal and really the biggest determination and recommendation they had was how do we create a funding source to be adequate and appropriate for the amount and scope of infrastructure, maintenance, and also future planning that we need to do to take care of it township-wide. And the MS4 program, for example, that we have observes a lot of our structures when it comes to projects, stream bank restorations, retrofits of existing infrastructure. Typically, that isn't able to get into the budget unless there's a significant grant funding assistance that comes along, and we're able to take advantage of that opportunity. So the effort to create a funding source that really is able to have the township move forward and properly maintain its infrastructure, that was like the overall number we were aiming for. And you can tell we wound up at, I think, the fairest way to do that, compliments to the advisory committee, where it's a set number for the residential properties, and then the commercial has the scale, but also has the cap to not be unfair to, say, like, as we know, like the mall property is almost all parking lot, right? If you went strictly by their numbers, it would have been thousands and thousands of dollars per month for a property like that. So you want to balance it with businesses being able to be in the township and thrive, as well as being responsible for the impervious they have. And on the residential side, not being too much of a burden to contribute to maintaining the infrastructure. So that 1.7 per year is really, we recommend as well, that's a good solid number to really move that forward and do an appropriate addressing of the township's stormwater infrastructure and how to improve that with more intense storms and have the capacity to handle it and reduce flooding issues. Now, the way that you piece together what projects are happening each year, as Mr. Valla mentioned, that was something that came out of that last meeting of maybe there is a form of the committee that stays on to help advise how to prioritize projects. Because as it is in the current budget, if there is a project in there, if you get grant funding, now instead of just putting all that towards one, maybe you can do more than one, maybe 3 a year, and make even more progress. So a lot of your questions that you had most recently seem to be more of, well, if we are able to get these grants for certain projects, how would that shift other things? And it's going to be the same approach as we do now, except that it's not going to be taking as much of a bite out of the capital, which would allow the township to actually accomplish a lot more for everything else besides stormwater. So if we'd still pursue grants, even though this is a funding source for stormwater, so we can do hopefully more in the scheduled year than we originally have planned if we don't have the grant funding. Some of the other items you mentioned, the recent pipelining project that is going out for advertisement, obviously that's stormwater related. That's the kind of maintenance work that if we had a steady funding source, there are pipes township-wide that I would say the most common thing that myself and Mr. Gartenmeyer see when we go out for drainage concerns from the residents is deteriorated infrastructure because the bottoms are out of old, corrugated metal pipes, and just lack of upkeep and maintenance of drainage systems that are kind of behind properties and connected to the canals and streams that we have and the creeks. So to upkeep that more, and you mentioned accurately the maintenance and the advisory committee, that chunk of money towards maintenance is really for that proper upkeep that we really don't have the level of that we should for a township of our size. So that's the pipelining project's an example of that. And when that comes in, if the funding is, or if the prices are favorable and it's something that's prioritized to move forward, that's an example of something that we can do to just add life to the infrastructure that we already have. The final point I think you've been touching on is the fee structure. And I know yourself and the others there that night, we lowered that residential fee down. Originally, we were tossing around numbers and trying to figure out how it all could work well. Lowering it down to that $5 a month, I think, was fantastic because the $60 a year we all felt was you know, obviously you don't want to add a fee for anybody, but $60 a year we thought was a fair way to have that as a steady flat fee for the residential. And then we also looked at on the commercial side, the lowest tier starts at 12, right? So there's definitely a separation there to make sure that we can bring in the funding that we need township-wide. So I think I touched on all the ones that you had in the email, because I know it also was related to some of the things we were discussing in the meetings. But the main thing is that with the adequate funding annually, the order of projects or the prioritization of projects has to be flexible, because as things happen, as things break down, things might have to take higher priority over others. But the important part of having that funding available to address those, I think, is the biggest benefit from having a designated fee that is before the board tonight.
And I think it's really important that the board know that the committee really struggled with that number. They really struggled with what the number of the residents. It was significantly higher when there was first discussion. And right now, the $5 a month, the $60 a year, is a fraction of what other municipalities that have this fee charge, a fraction. You know, we had a member of the committee who is out working in the field and commented about the city of Philadelphia's fee being $60 a quarter for residents. We know the other municipalities that are charging this fee are significantly higher. So I know there was great effort put into the number being something that was doable.
Yeah, and I just want to thank the committee and the staff for implementing a fee versus, I know there was talk early on about a potential authority to be set up. I think keeping this in-house, I think keeping, you know, the ability for us to really drive your elected officials and your board drive which projects that we prioritize, and also allowing for a lot more of that fee to be able to go towards actual projects instead of administration. So I just want to thank the team and the committee for all of their work. Thank you for your due diligence. I know a lot of the questions. I know I've reviewed. I think, you know, a lot of the answers that we had, and again, this is authorizing to draft the ordinance. It's going to have to come back to us. So I think we definitely have time to make sure that all of your questions are 100% answered. The last question that I had, will this have a designated fund so this will go directly to a separate fund in the budget?
Yep, it's right here. It's right here. We'll be talking about it in 5 minutes.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think, well, thank you, Mr. Kessler, for answering those points. If we wanted to consider making a permanent stormwater advisory committee to carry out the work that was discussed, assessing and prioritizing projects, what would be the process for doing that?
We could authorize to do that at our next meeting.
Could that be part of the draft ordinance, or would that have to be separate?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Mr. Feather, I mean, those are pretty comprehensive answers. Do you feel like your concerns have been addressed?
I do at this time, so thank you very much for your consideration and, again, your time. And I truly believe that we should have a standing committee for this as well moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you. And if we do, I hope you consider volunteering to continue the work, because you're definitely a valuable member of the committee, sincerely. Okay, so any other board questions or comments?
My one question would be, if this was implemented, when would people start actually having to pay the fee? Would it be 2025 around?
It would be in 2025, yes.
Okay.
And what would be the collection schedule? Do we know that yet?
Sure. We have some quotes from a few different avenues of how we can go about collecting that. For the residents, we would probably look to do a once-a-year bill, just to kind of keep it clean and simple. We have a quote from the township tax collector to do that on the actual real estate tax bills. And then there's also the ability to use like a third party, such as we do for other types of tax and fees, such as like a Berkheimer or Keystone, which Keystone collects the earned income tax. If folks are you familiar with that? And the board can move forward on that specific piece after the legislation is enacted.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? And if not, I can accept a motion. Okay, I will move to authorize the township solicitor to draft and advertise an ordinance to create a stormwater impact fee as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions at this time? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I know I spoke last meeting about this. With creating a $1.7 million fund for this, that takes money out of the capital fund right now that is going to stormwater. In this advertisement, are we discussing what we are doing with that $1.7 million hole in our capital fund that's money taxpayers are paying? What are we doing with that after this fee is instituted so that we can make sure that the taxpayers are...
I think that'll answer in the budget presentation
Yeah.
upcoming.
Yeah, you'll hear that we have $12 million worth of requests and about $3 million to spend. So unfortunately, there's no windfall of money to go towards something else because this will segregate the money from this fee. I mean, that's the good news. It will specifically always be in this fund for this purpose. It
Okay.
won't be permitted to be shifted over for something
All right.
else.
And the proposed budget's going to be put on the webpage? Or if it's already...
It will be on the webpage probably right at the end of the meeting when the board authorizes the advertisement.
All right, thank you.
The short answer on capital is that every year there are sort of more projects than we can afford to undertake in any particular calendar year. That's what our budget workshops are for, in large part, to identify those projects, to prioritize them, figure out which ones are essential, which ones are less essential, which ones need to be done immediately, and which ones can be deferred. And so certainly having money diverted by the stormwater fee does help the capital fund, but all that just means is that there are other projects that are waiting in the wings that potentially may not have the ability to move forward with. Other public questions? Yes, sir.
Just real quick to clarify the last gentleman's point, it's not quite 1.7 being shifted away from the capital budget.
Right.
1.7 is what we've determined is the appropriate number for the township storm. So it's, if we had 1.7 for stormwater, year after year, that'd be fantastic. But it's always been frankly underfunded. So now we can actually have the appropriate amount for the township size and have that designated fee as a separate fee, or a separate funding source, I should say.
Thank you.
The 1.7 is what's being proposed based on the fees that we're going to be collecting from the commercial and from residents. So that's what the township is going to be getting as income for the proposed projects that are necessary. My one concern was, currently we're spending approximately $450,000 out of the capital and the reserve fund for stormwater. So with that being said, we're going to be generating a $1.7 million income. The $450,000 goes where? So that was always one of my questions. I understand that we have so many projects that need to be done, but we're now looking at $450,000 roughly that we're not going to be spending on stormwater out of the general fund and the capital fund, but now we're generating the income from this fee that we're imposing on commercial and residential. So that was always one of my little contentions.
That $450,000 will be spent on parks and police and bridges and roads.
It was always my understanding that it was for the stormwater.
It was never designated for just stormwater.
Okay,
It was
but
never
a lot
segregated.
of it did go to, okay, so now we're not spending that out of the capital fund or reserve fund for stormwater, any of it. We're just having this separate. So we're freeing up some money for other projects, correct?
Absolutely. I agree with that. It's just, and this, it's not the way we work, that we say, okay, we've got the 450 and this is now what we're going to use it for. Every year on an annual basis, we go through this lengthy budget process where we look at capital projects and prioritize them. So I can't tell you what that $450,000 is going to be allocated towards.
I just wanted to make sure we were clear.
We're good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other public questions or comments? All right, it's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 4-0. Thank you again to township staff and members of the committees who were so involved in this process. All right, next on the agenda, presentation and consideration of authorizing advertisement of the 2025 budget. Ms. Tioli-Cools.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone. It's my honor to present the proposed budget to you this evening. It continues our commitment to provide high-quality municipal services and programs to our residents and businesses. This budget does not propose a real estate tax increase for the coming year. Overall, the 2025 budget, as I just mentioned, maintains services. We do enter the year in a positive fiscal position with an accumulated fund balance of $58 million. However, and I think it's a very important however, we remain in a position where we have these two significant challenges. One is that the general fund has a structural deficit. So for 2024, this structural deficit is $1.5 million. That is expected to grow to $2.8 million by the end of 2025. And secondly, the capital fund does not have a funding source. And so this year, 2024, we transferred $2.4 million from the investment fund to the capital fund so that we can start off the capital fund with some ability to fund projects. The overall operating expenditures for all funds is $45,141,954 and proposed capital expenditures of $3.5 million. This is a slide that we show each year, and it basically shows that and this is the general fund we're looking at. As we mentioned, our expenditures are outpacing revenues, but one of the things that this chart really shows is that our ongoing costs for salaries, benefits, pensions for our personnel is the primary driver of general fund, and it accounts for over 86% of general fund total expenditures. This slide shows you all of the fund balances. So it shows you again that there is more than $58 million in fund balance across all of our funds, most significantly in the investment fund. When we move to work on the budget, there are a number of variables and assumptions that go into developing a budget. These next few slides sort of give you some highlights on that. As far as grants go, as you know, we have a history of aggressively seeking grant revenues. We also have seen very significant increases in grants being made available to us. We've received more than $15 million in grants since 2011. In 2024 alone, we have received $2.9 million. And this budget that you are considering this evening includes an additional $500,000 from earlier years. Looking at insurance coverages, I'll just remind you, I know this is something we talk about each year, but we participate in the Delaware Valley Municipal Insurance Trust, and that enables us to take advantage of municipal insurance fund, municipal insurance pooling, and the benefits of sharing our risk with other municipalities. There are more than 300 members of the Delaware Valley Insurance Trust. We have, for our health insurance increase this year, let me grab my thing here. For our health insurance, our renewal is 3.2%, which is an absolute fraction of what's going on out in the commercial market and what we saw when we were in the commercial market. We also have our workers' comp trust with the Delaware Valley. That has gone up a bit, and that is primarily because of our experience and because we are covering firefighters now, and we haven't in the past. Property and liability insurance is out to market right now. As far as maintaining our infrastructure and equipment, I'll remind you that we are just finished up year 11 of our road improvement program, and we have paved more than 76 miles of roads. In 2025, we are proposing for $500,000 to be dedicated to road paving. Our capital improvement plan will prioritize physical improvements, and our vehicle costs and equipment needs, we're very fortunate, are often covered by RDA grants. A couple of notable financial recognitions. We are now in our 6th year of receiving the Distinguished Budget Award, and we now have received the Excellence in Financial Reporting for the 20th time. Very significant accomplishments. There's a very small percentage of entities out there that receive both of these awards. This time last year, Moody's affirmed our AAA credit rating. And I just note that we have a fund balance policy that exceeds the recommendations of the GFOA. Looking at our township staff, this budget incorporates 120 full-time employees. Earlier this evening, we discussed the 2 collective bargaining agreements. So now our 3 primary collective bargaining units will receive 4% wage increases. The crossing guards are in the last year of their contract, which is 3.5%. This proposal includes an additional police officer, and it includes filling all vacant positions, including hiring that full-time fire chief that we have been talking about. Speaking of fire services, we are served by 4 volunteer fire companies, and we supplement that with our daytime response by the firefighters in the Department of Fire and Emergency Management. We plan to continue to work toward implementation of the strategic plan that was created in 2021, and we continue with our goal to create a true combination department. I do note that we are now covering workers' compensation insurance for all 4 fire companies as well. Our pension obligation, the minimum municipal obligation for our police pension and our non-uniformed is up there. There's a graph that gives you an idea of where that number is. These things are impacted by the benefits that are provided to the employees through their pension. General fund highlights, we're proposing a balanced budget, as we typically do. This year, on the revenue side, we are going to be taking $2.8 million out of our fund balance to balance the general fund. Looking at this chart, it shows you revenues and expenditures and fund balance over time. A couple of things to just sort of make note of. The general fund balance has increased. This is 2014 is the first year of the EIT collection, so you can see sort of an overall increase. You do see the fund balance dipping during the COVID years, and you see the fund balance jumping up as a result of the ARPA funding. And then finally, you see the convergence of the revenues and expenditures, as we already noted. General fund revenues, this is the pie. EIT is always the biggest at about 35%. The real estate tax is after that at 14.2%. We do have public safety in there, a little bit over 10%. Those are the contracts for service that we have with some of the entities in the township. And you see the remainder of that pie is divvied up. This next slide shows you our real estate tax millage across the governmental funds. Our millage is proposed to remain at 19.025, no increase in 2025. For the average resident in Middletown Township, that is a real estate tax of $560. The millage that our residents pay to the other 2 jurisdictions is on this slide. The school district is currently at 181.68, and Bucks County is at 27.45. So for every dollar that is spent on real estate taxes in Middletown Township, 8 cents of that goes to Middletown, 12 to the county, and 80 to the school district. Act 511 taxes, this is the array of other taxes that we collect: amusement, EIT, local services, mercantile, parking transaction, per capita, and real estate transfer. None of these rates are proposed to change in 2025. Our amusement tax primarily is Sesame Place is funding this. We're budgeting 1.2 million. You see the real dip in amusement tax revenues during the COVID years, and it is leveling off. It's not quite back to where it was pre-COVID, but we are hoping to see that increase. We're budgeting conservatively based upon what we've been seeing the last couple of years. The earned income tax is next, 9.6 million. Sometimes a graph or a chart really shows you what's going on. It's leveling off. The increase in folks' income is being offset by the other municipalities that are collecting this tax now. We have a number of other municipalities who have implemented it. So we believe we're still going to have a solid 9.6 next year, and our tax collector agrees with us, but you can see over the years it has gradually increased. We're most likely leveling off at this point. The mercantile tax, 1.175 million, and this is paid on retail and wholesale goods. This next, and again, you see a similar dip for COVID. This is back to very close to pre-COVID numbers, and this next chart will show you this tax is primarily paid by automotive, grocery, and large retail in Middletown Township. Real estate transfer, we're budgeting at 1.4. This is a category that is impacted by the interest rate environment. You can see that 2021, late 2022, there was a very strong real estate market. We also had a couple of very large commercial transfers at this time. We are budgeting conservatively. We do expect a couple of big properties to transfer in 2025 as well. Just looking at our expenditures, this is the pie that you typically get to see, which is 52% police, and then you see benefits at about 18%, followed by public works and building and zoning, and then the rest are pretty evenly split in our categories. Obviously, police impacted primarily by our personnel. Looking at some of the other funds that we have, the Fire Protection Fund, as a reminder, this is the 1.92 mil real estate tax. This is just the general millage. Apparatus is separate now. In 2023, our team of career firefighters moved to 12-hour days, 5 days a week, and we are now funding, so we fund both the volunteer and career, and we fund the workers' comp for the volunteers out of this. Total expenditures expected to be about $2 million. The Fire Apparatus Fund, this is a newly established fund, and this is where we hold the money for the purchase of apparatus. There's real estate tax revenue of $570,000. You'll recall we ordered 3 engines, and they will be coming in 2026. In order to fund these, we have the money that is held in the fund balance for the Fire Apparatus Fund, the $2.1 million held by the fire companies, which it is intended will be moving over. With the 2026 revenue from this tax, we will be able to cover those 3 fire companies with a tiny little balance remaining. Parks and Rec Fund, this fund supports our 19 parks, the maintenance and programming. In 2025, that's $1.8 million. I really want to shout out to the Parks and Rec team, Paul, Patrick, Joanne, and Nicole. They have significantly increased the programming revenue in the last couple of years. Sanitation Fund, 2025 will be year 1 of a 5-year contract. It's 5.3 is the cost for us. In 2025, our residents will be paying $476 annually. The capital fund, we've got 3.5 million programmed in capital projects. Only mission-critical projects are funded in this budget, as we discussed at our workshop meeting. And I'm just going to say this now, for anyone who wants to take a look at this whole document will be on the website. There will be a copy here at the Township Building if you want to come and leaf through it, but it will show you what we are considering mission-critical projects, primarily those things that are necessary for us to move forward with infrastructure. Some of them are things that we have grant funding already received for that we have to program. Stormwater Fund. This is a newly created fund. We just discussed this. We discussed the fee. It is anticipated that we will receive in the ballpark of 1.8 million into this fund in 2025. Finally, we have the investment fund. Just a reminder that this is a fund that is controlled by ordinance, that it should never go below $40 million. Very fortunate this year, if real estate transfer tax revenues are down because of the interest rate environment, we receive a benefit on this side when the interest rates are high. And so we were fortunate that we're able to transfer that money from this fund, still keep it at 40 million. And also by the end of 2025, we're expecting that fund to rebound to the 41 million-ish range. And then finally, last is the Highway Aid Fund, and this is the fund that is designated specifically for highway construction, rebuilding, snow removal, 1.857 million programmed in the Highway Aid Fund, including our road program this year in the Highway Aid Fund. So I tried to keep that to less than 10 minutes. As far as concluding comments go, I really just want to thank the whole team for all their hard work. This is a huge task. We have had a remarkable convergence of folks working on this. I would be remiss to not really recognize Nick, who worked literally around the clock for the last 2 weeks. Mega was very valuable in helping us to put the numbers together. I want to recognize Liz, our public information person. I don't know if you've noticed, but this is a pretty fancy slideshow, much better than the typical PowerPoint. And then I would really just, I would finally just say thank you to the board. This is the single most important policy document for you annually, and I really am very grateful that you all took the time to spend digging in and making the tough decisions. I would be happy to answer any questions, but just want to remind you that what we're requesting for you to do tonight is authorize advertisement and the opening of the public inspection process. It's required that there be 20 days between your authorizing advertisement and voting. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dioli-Cools, and certainly our thanks as a board goes to you, Mr. Valla, and everyone that had a role in putting together this budget. It's a tremendous undertaking. It's a ton of work every year, and it seems to get harder, not easier, year after year. So thank you for everything that you did to put this together and for the excellent presentation. Any questions from any board members for Ms. Dioli-Cools?
No questions. We've got a lot of work and hard decisions to do over the next couple of years. I mean, this will be the second year in a row that we are at a structural deficit in the general fund. I think our fire protection fund is also at a deficit on an annual basis. We've got, this township has been able to get away with not increasing tax revenue since the EIT. And I think, that is quickly coming to an end. So we've got a lot of hard decisions coming up in the next couple of years.
Other comments, other questions? Okay, well then I will make a motion to advertise the 2025 budget. Is there a second?
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries 4-0. Thank you again to Ms. Teoli-Cools, Mr. Val, and everyone involved in the preparation of this budget document. And that is our last formal agenda item, which brings us to other business. I'll start. Do you want to ask Ms. Hannah if she has anything? And while we're doing that, Mr. Kessler.
We do have some plans for signatures, if I can bother you three after the meeting.
Sure.
And we just did want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving holiday coming up.
Thank you. Mr. Valla.
Nothing. Happy Thanksgiving.
Mr. Esposito. Ms. Teoli-Cools.
Ms. Hannah is saying thank you to the residents who came out, and also thank you to the team for the hard work on the budget. And I would also say happy Thanksgiving. Very grateful for this community and this wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Payne.
I just want to thank all the residents who are involved in the Stormwater Committee. I know you guys put a lot of time, energy, and effort, and it's greatly appreciated, and I look forward to continuing to see what you guys can put together in the future moving forward. And happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Ms. Kane.
Nothing further. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving from me as well. And that concludes the meeting. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.